Today we're diving into a real head-scratcher of a crime story. But forget fingerprints and tire tracks. In this whodunit, the clues are all digital, and the criminals are chasing ghost cars hidden in lines of code. So, that brings up a really fascinating question, right? When a crime doesn't leave a single physical trace, just these digital ghosts floating around in a massive database, how on earth do you even start to solve it? The answer? Well, it's actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. They follow the data. And in this case, that digital trail of breadcrumbs led them straight to a small auto shop and a very human story. Okay, so let's do that. Let's follow that trail. Our story kicks off not in some dark alley, but deep inside of a government computer system, where a few regulators in California started noticing something just wasn't adding up. The first clue actually popped up in the data from California's Bureau of Automotive Repair. They were digging through their gigantic Smog check database, the system that's supposed to help keep our air clean, and their computers started flagging this really bizarre, really suspicious pattern. So what exactly did they find? Well, the system was catching cars that were getting smog certificates using the wrong electronic vehicle identification number, the EVIN. Think of it like a car's unique digital fingerprint. And here's the real kicker. 4 totally different cars were certified using the exact same EVIN. I mean, come on. On top of that, there were all these other weird mismatches in the data. All of these digital red flags were blinking, and they all pointed to one shop, Playa West Automotive, and one specific technician, Andy Morozic. So the Bureau has all these digital breadcrumbs, but what crime were they even looking at? Well, it turns out they were looking at a very specific type of high-tech fraud, something called clean plugging. Clean plugging is essentially an identity swap for cars. A technician takes a car they know will pass the emissions test, plugs it in, and then uses that clean passing data to print out a fake certificate for a completely different car, one that's probably polluting like crazy and would never pass on its own. And this analogy just nails it. It's pure digital deception. You're taking a perfect test result from a healthy subject to cover up a serious problem in an unhealthy one. It allows a polluting car to just drive right back out onto the road, totally illegally. And right here is the smoking gun. This table, which is basically a simplified version of the state's evidence, shows you exactly how it worked. You can see cars like a BMW, a Honda, a Chevy getting certified, but the test data, that digital fingerprint, the EVIN, it was coming from a totally different car every single time. This was the proof. It was undeniable. So with this mountain of digital evidence, investigators went and confronted the technician. And his response, well, it was surprisingly direct. In a letter he wrote to the Bureau, Andy Morozic didn't even try to deny it. He just took full ownership. This wasn't a case of, oh, my computer got hacked or it must be a system glitch. Nope. It was a straight-up admission of guilt, which, honestly, adds this whole other fascinating human layer to a digital crime. But why? Why did he do it? This is where the story takes a really interesting turn, because it connects this one fraud case to the huge disruptions we all felt during the COVID-19 pandemic. So in that same letter, Morozic explained his reasoning. He claimed that once the pandemic hit, the normal support systems for technicians, like the state's referee program that helps with really tricky vehicles, just shut down. He said he felt completely abandoned, with no other way to handle cars that had complex issues. So now we have the crime, we have the confession, and we have the justification. So how did the legal system handle all that? Let's take a look at what the administrative law judge decided. And this slide really just lays it all out side by side. On one hand, you've got the technician's reasoning. The system was broken, it left him no choice. But on the other hand, you have the judge's cold, hard legal finding. Feeling frustrated, no matter how valid that feeling is not a license to break the law. The judge laid out 3 crystal clear reasons for throwing out any plea for leniency. First, this wasn't some one-time mistake. It was a clear pattern, 8 deliberate, fraudulent acts. Second, as we just saw, frustration is not a legal defense. And third, and this is a big one, while the technician took responsibility, the judge felt he showed no real remorse, no sign that he understood the gravity of what he did, or that he wouldn't do it again if he felt pressured. So the verdict was in, and it was not in his favor. Now let's get to the consequences for the technician, for his business, and what this all means for the bigger picture. The penalty was, well, it was about as severe as it gets. This didn't just affect him. It completely wiped out the business he had spent decades building. Yep, The judge revoked everything: the shop's official registration, its Smog check station license, and Mrazek's personal licenses to be an inspector and a technician, a total and complete professional wipeout. And as if losing his entire career and livelihood wasn't enough, there was also a pretty hefty bill waiting for him. Right, nearly $12,000. And that wasn't a punishment fine. It was basically an invoice to reimburse the state for the time and money it took to hunt down these digital ghosts in the first place. And this right here is really why this all matters so much. It was never just about one technician cutting corners. The harsh penalty was meant to send a message loud and clear. The integrity of the entire Smog check program is non-negotiable. It's a system built on trust, and it's designed to protect all of our health by keeping the air we breathe clean. Which leaves us with a final and pretty tough question to think about. We saw a technician who genuinely felt the system had failed him, and his reaction was to break the rules. But in the end, when someone decides to cut corners in a system that's designed for the public good, who really ends up paying the price?